Didn't go with the curls today?
I did not go with the curls today. I went straight. And Dan, it looks like you straightened your hair as well. What about you, Brendan? How did you how did you do
Yeah,
your
it
hair
takes me a
today?
while to get ready in the morning, but
Yeah,
it takes a while to get this work.
yeah, me too.
Well, we're actually officially recording, so you guys got a little insight into our jokes pre-recording. My name is McLean Warren with Liaison Marketing. This is Brendan Fields with Rebate, and this is Dan Trumbull. He owns a Dan Trumbull Consulting. Almost like consultation, but I guess it's the same thing, really. You guys want to kind of introduce yourselves as well, give us a little insight into who you are and how you got here?
Sure.
Sure. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So my name's Brendan Fields. I've been Amazon seller for almost 10 years now. I have a large business in the sporting goods category on Amazon, and I started way back before FBA existed and advertising. So I've seen the full progression and growth of Amazon. And my latest venture is Rebate, which is a rebate platform for sellers. And I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that later in the podcast.
Yeah, I just out of curiosity, what made you decide to switch over to doing Rebate or creating it?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of launch platforms out there, and all the experience I had with Amazon, I saw kind of different elements that were missing or kind of scattered between these different platforms. So I thought it'd be a good venture to bring in all the kind of the best elements into one dashboard and one kind of interface for sellers.
Which is something I do want to circle back to after Dan speaks, is what, before we delve into the different or strategies for launching, like what kind of platforms there are, because there's so many different kinds of ways to do launching. And you saying that you've taken elements from different, strategies, it'd be cool to touch base on like what works and what doesn't and why you think it works or not. Dan, you're up, buddy.
That's me.
That's you.
I've been around forever and a day, just like Brendan, since before the FBA days. I also own a brand. I've launched, between myself and my clients, more than 500 private label products on Amazon, and managed, I guess now at this point, more than 20,000 SKUs. So lots of experience, been in e-commerce a long time, started offering consulting services and moderating services about 5 years ago, and find it pretty fulfilling. I'm excited to talk about launch strategies today because I think it's something that's kind of an afterthought. People spend so much time talking about finding the perfect product and finding the perfect niche, quote unquote perfect. They forget that it's like feeding pigeons in the park. You can't just run out there and scream you have birdseed. They'll all fly away. But
Right.
But you have to give them a little bit, and you have to plan accordingly, especially when you're launching products on Amazon, which is highly competitive, especially in the US. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys today.
Awesome. Well, we're planning on making this a weekly segment called Rise and Shine, which is kind of a play off of Dan and our Amazon group called Rise Above. It's a platform for Amazon sellers and experts as well. We would love to have a lot of people on the show to give their expertise. In this case, it's Brendan specifically, who again will be talking about rebate and launching strategies. So make sure to tune in every week for that. And that's all there is to be said about that. Today, we're going to be talking about launching strategies. Again, what works, what doesn't, and why it works. Dan, do you want to discuss, before we even get into when you will launch your product, right? Like you have to have what I call the engine of your car set up properly, right? So, people are so focused on the shiny pictures and, making all this look good, but the nuts and bolts of that, engine, they've got to be in place. Otherwise, you can launch as much as you want, but that car is never going to leave the garage. So if you want to talk about optimization, I think that would be pretty pertinent to this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like your ticket to the dance, right? Everyone wants to be the king or queen of the prom, but you got to get into the dance first. Your product has to be discoverable by Amazon and by external search engines. And the only way to effectively and do that over and over again in a scalable way and in a duplicatable way is to make sure that you understand the rules and your titles are optimized for mobile viewing, which means 80 characters or less, and making sure that your primary keyword or phrase is appearing in the beginning of that title, directly after the brand name. That's how Amazon says to do it in their guidelines. And then moving down to the bullet points, making sure that you're peppering in as many pertinent is really important. Pertinent keywords and phrases. Don't be ashamed to take creativity from your competitors, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. If you're selling blue widgets and someone else is selling blue widgets, make sure blue widgets is in your listing, right? It sounds crazy, but some people get so caught up in what HTML can I use in the body and how long is the title, and I want to make sure that I'm capturing this focus group, that they forget we're selling widgets.
Right.
So and then use HTML. If you don't have brand registry, HTML is a great way to clean up the body of your listing. It's going to be more aesthetically pleasing. It will not change your search engine optimization, but the information you include will.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
and then those back-end search terms, obviously, all that has to be populated before you spend a single dime or before you even get into your launch strategy.
And Brandon, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with everything Dan said?
I do, yeah. And so building on that, so there's kind of this this sounds obvious, but it's lost, I think, on so many sellers, is the purpose of a launch is to get traffic to get a good product noticed by shoppers. So if your product is not a good product, so if it's a poor quality product, you're not going to be able to buy reviews or do black hat activity to support a bad product and make it look good on Amazon. In other words, kind of put lipstick on a pig. So what you're doing with the launch is getting some momentum behind your listing so that your listing starts being found by shoppers on Amazon. And from there, you want those organic shoppers to take over. If your product isn't a good product, it's always going to fall back, and you're going to waste, all the money that you spend on the launch. So that's the role of a launch, and it's important to keep that in mind, going into it.
Yeah, one of my favorite, it's an old quote, but it pretty much says, "Nothing reveals a bad product like good advertising." So,
no kidding.
You can do whatever you want. You can put as much as you want to advertising, but if you can't back up those claims, it's irrelevant. It's not going to work. So
yeah, I totally agree. The other thing I wanted to touch on is I think a critical component that is often overlooked for launch strategies is a budget. People spend months, sometimes years, with paralysis by analysis, right? And they have all these spreadsheets of how much the product costs and how much the freight forwarder costs and how much the packaging costs and how much are the Amazon fees and how much are the FBA fees and how much is the tax and the VAT. And they have all this in a spreadsheet. And then when you say, well, how much did you budget for your launch? Oh, I was just going to pay that as it comes. You can't do that. You have to know if you're planning on making money or if the first round of products are going to be a loss leader. Either way is okay, but it's pretty dangerous to not know the difference.
I mean, I know with my clients, when I ask what their profit margins are, they don't even talk about PPC or launching. It's like, those are probably some of your biggest, that's what's sucking up most of your money. So these are things that you need to definitely incorporate into your budget, like you said.
And oftentimes, especially if it's someone's first launch or even second or third launch, oftentimes they don't know, right? They've not been there. So they haven't managed an ongoing successful product on Amazon. So the only costs that they're familiar with are the ones that they've been collecting over the last few months, which is product cost, everything we just discussed. And they don't know that once you're done with that, all that work is done, which is the nice part about private label. You find that you do all that work once and then you just keep reordering in theory. But then it changes. The way you manage that product changes, and so should the way you budget for it.
Yeah, and I think another part of that too is sourcing. So I think one of the big challenges with launching a product, especially a product that's sourced overseas, is that you're planning months and months ahead to get that product landed at a fulfillment center, and it's even longer now with these delays with Amazon. And you have to kind of go into it knowing you're not going to be that flexible, right? So there's a little bit of art to it, and a little bit of a science with determining how many units of the product you're going to source. So I think a lot of sellers fail on either one extreme or the other. So they undersource their product, and if they're successful with their launch, they go out of stock. And that's like the dreaded thing you see on these forums all the time is, I have this winning product, I launched, it was successful, and now there's no way I'm going to get it back in stock, before I run out of what's currently, in stock. And then on the other extreme, you see a lot of sellers that oversource, so they're bringing in a huge quantity of products and their launch flops, and then they just have a bunch of dead inventory. So I guess keeping that as part of your launch plan, and having kind of a flexible strategy for navigating that is an important thing as well.
Do you have a rough, obviously it depends on the person, the product, how fast they can have a turnaround, but do you have a suggested range in terms of what you would tell someone a good starting number is to order?
Yeah, so that's where I think a lot of product research comes into play. So you need to look at what, if you're successful, what that's going to equate to in sales. So if the top of the first page is selling 50 units a day, you want your estimate to be based off of that, and then also look at what your supply chain time is. So like factors like where you're located are going to be important. So if you're in California, you're going to save 2 weeks on shipping, versus if you're in New York or New Jersey or on the East Coast. So that's one factor. Obviously, depending on the product, some products you can source from an overseas vendor and they can have it ready in a week or two. Sometimes it takes months. So there's a bunch of inputs that go into that formula. So I'm hard pressed to say, an exact number, but it's definitely just understanding what, factors or inputs are at play. So.
Yeah, I agree, Brendan. I think that the number you order should take into account many factors, like you said, market demand and competitive landscape, I think, are the largest determining factors.
Yep.
Now, before we get into the actual launch, because I know I have an opinion about this, everyone has an opinion about this. And I want to hear both of yours. Do you believe that someone should start launching before they have reviews on their product?
Sure, I'll start with that. So it depends what you're doing. So I own a rebate platform, and I tell everybody uses the platform that I talk to that we're not, the single tool to use. So now you have to use pay-per-click. You have to use a launch platform. If you can manage to do it, it's good to try to drive some external traffic by doing social media advertising. So you can kind of stagger how you start those things. So pay-per-click is infamously poor performing when you have no reviews. So you might want to start, week 1, week 2, week 3 with, a rebate platform like mine, or another platform where you're going to be guaranteed to get the sales because people are getting your product at a steep discount. And then, I hear a lot of people say you need to have, 100 reviews before you get any traction. In my experience, 0 to 1 is the biggest jump. So as soon as you have one good review on your listing, your conversion rates go up considerably, and then they incrementally increase as you have 10, 50, 100. But just getting that first few reviews is critical, I think, before you start pay-per-click. Otherwise, you're going to be spending a fortune, on your campaign.
I'm not really just referring to pay-per-click, although I agree with that and I don't agree with that. What I really mean is that, do you think because when people are purchasing something at a discount that the reviews don't matter when, you jump onto Amazon and you're seeing the product that you're going to get a 70% discount or whatever?
Yeah. So, if you're unfortunate enough to start with a few bad reviews, but you have a good product. That does happen. That sucks when you have that start. But in that respect, yeah, obviously, you know, a discounted deal through a launch platform is going to still get you those conversions. And maybe I misunderstood the question, but
no, it's okay. I think you were talking about PPC, which is still relevant about reviews. But anyway, all good advice. I mean, I agree with everything you said for the most part. Dan?
Yeah, so I think that, like Brendan said, it's got to be a staggered, kind of multi-pronged attack. I actually start PPC from day one, but it's an extremely fiscally conservative version.
Yeah.
And then as I collect reviews, I start to invest more and more. You know, if you don't do PPC on Amazon today, it is an art form. And there are people that only do that for a living, and they are wizards. But it's something you have to constantly be nipping, tucking, grooming to pump the best performance out of it. And so really you're starting at zero with that, and then you're trying to get to whatever your goal is in your specific product situation. You know, some people try and use it as a profit center. Some people use it to drive rank and try and break even. Some people use it as a loss leader. I've seen it used effectively in all ways. And like I said before, it's just really important to know how you want to use it before you start to use it. I do like platforms like Rebate because they do guarantee you your first sale. So like you were saying, Brendan, the biggest jump is from 0 to 1 reviews. I would say when you get your first sale, that's when you get rank. And once your product is ranked, it changes how it's treated by the A9 Amazon search algorithm. This is a product with a review and a rank. So it's a proven product, so to speak.
Yep. And if I could jump back, because you reminded me, Dan, of one thing. So pay-per-click is not actually just a launch tool or something used to, you know, maintain your rank. It's actually a great keyword research tool. So a lot of, and this totally changes what I said before, but a lot of people before they launch will actually do an automatic target campaign just to collect keyword data and see what, because I think a lot of people think, you know, I know what the best keyword phrase for my product is, and then shoppers tell them that they're totally wrong. So that's actually something that you reminded me of and is important to keep in mind too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know we're kind of veering off topic because we're talking about PPC now, but just to kind of interject, I do agree on, you know, doing PPC right away, just to get that data, you know, like whether it's just for your manual campaigns or to extract keywords for your listing is important. I would say regarding reviews, it also depends on the product, you know, like if you're purchasing something that's like a cleaner or something, you probably don't care as much about reviews as you would something really expensive or something that you really would value, you know? So I think, you know, when people say, oh, you have to have 1 to 5 reviews, it really just depends on what you're selling, because a lot of the cheaper stuff or stuff that people don't care as much about reviews, it's going to be not as, important than it would if you're buying like a table or something that's really nice.
I would say it's not as important at the point of purchase from the perspective of the buyer, but it is still important for discoverability through the Amazon search engine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these, I guess things, they're kind of reciprocating or they're reinforcing mechanisms because even let's say, you know, 3.5 stars, I think most people kind of consider that on the lower end. Anything under than 4 starts to look low. What happens with that is it starts hurting your conversion rate, because maybe most shoppers are fine with it, especially if it's the cheapest, you know, product amongst the competition. But you get 10% that say, you know, I don't want to buy a product that's less than 4 stars. And if you start having a lower conversion rate than other comparable listings, your rank and visibility on Amazon starts to fall. So that's another thing I think to keep in mind with reviews is the higher your review rate, the higher your conversion rate, the higher your rank, the more sales you generate. So these things just kind of accelerate on themselves. So
absolutely. So let's jump into the actual launching process. First, I want to go over something we were talking about before we started recording, which was that there's a multitude of ways that you can launch your product. You know, you have services that actually have search, find, buy. They literally have people doing that. You have chatbots that are, you know, hunting down people that way. You have third-party sellers that are, you know, doing discounted, they're selling at a discount. So when you were talking about rebate, you said you kind of looked at, you know, you could even talk about the early review programs. You know, there's just tons of ways you can go about trying to generate those sales in the beginning. When you started talking about rebate, you said you were looking at all the different types of strategies and platforms. What made you decide on this particular one, and what makes it so effective?
Sure. So I guess up maybe as recently as 2 or 3 years ago, kind of the go-to launch strategy was to use discounts. So to use create discount codes in your Seller Central account, and there's a number of platforms that help you distribute these codes to shoppers, and they would, you know, buy your product using a 90 or 99% off discount code, and that would generate the sales velocity to get your product ranked. A few years ago, sellers started to notice that those discount codes were less effective at getting your product ranked, and were also not affecting BSR, which is the you know, Amazon sales velocity. And so people started moving to rebates. There's a couple platforms that do it. Obviously, there's one big one other than us, and there were some kind of components missing. So they facilitated, you know, these rebate promotions, but they didn't offer functions like search, find, buy, which for people who aren't familiar with that, that's where you give a shopper a keyword phrase to search for. They search for that on Amazon, find your product and buy it. So effectively, you're feeding Amazon's algorithm the keyword data that tells Amazon what to rank your product for. So that's a feature that we have that isn't available on other platforms. One other area that I think we've made strides in that other platforms don't offer is shopper messaging. So so SMS text messaging has become a good way to reach shoppers, and no other platform is doing it. And we created a shopper messaging system that is SMS text message based. So sellers can actually reach shoppers where they're seeing the messages. Up until recently, you know, with email, most shoppers or most recipients would see your email. And there's been a lot of changes to inboxes like Gmail that will actually filter out messages that are perceived as promotional. So a lot of times shoppers aren't even seeing the messages that are sent as follow-up. So with SMS text, you know, we can, you know, more or less guarantee that shoppers are actually seeing the messages that sellers send as a post-order follow-up.
And how do you feel about the effectiveness of, and both of you can answer this, with super URLs or two steps, or is that something that you incorporate into your program? And do you find them as effective as search, find, buys?
Yeah, so for a period of time, they took a total dive. So those, in my opinion, weren't working at all. So what's kind of come up that has brought them back to some extent is, and I'll just name a few companies like Pixelfy, URL Genius, AMZ1, that to some extent actually simulate a search from that super URL. And I think there's a lot of disagreement, or maybe not everyone sees eye to eye on how effective those are, but those, in my opinion, have definitely brought back some of the effectiveness of super URLs. But still, search, find, buy, I think most people would agree is the most effective, you know, strategy. So,
Jim?
Yeah, I agree. I don't use super URLs at all. What we haven't talked about as part of a launch strategy is the Amazon coupon. So when I launch, I always launch with a coupon. Putting a coupon on your product is different than discounting it, as you probably know. It also makes your product show up in different places specific to Amazon, places you can only show up if you have a coupon on your product. It's also free to do. It's 60 cents per redemption. So, and then of course, whatever discount you offer, which again, you should be budgeting for as part of your launch and ongoing strategy. So overall, and then there's that point of sale, right? Like $5 off a $25 item. Ooh, that's a good deal. It's kind of that impulse, like I'm getting a good deal, so I'd be dumb not to buy it. That sort of mentality. But there's still a lot of that out there. There's still a lot of that perceived value is what it's called out there. And so while coupons can't be a standalone, none of these ideas can be standalone launch strategies. It can be a nice complement to something like Rebate, which I also use along with an aggressively low PPC strategy on Amazon, combined with, no, I'm serious, really aggressively low. Like I won't pay more than 8 cents per click, that sort of thing. Because we know if it's a new product and there's no reviews, we know that you can pour, it's like throwing money into a volcano until you get those first handful of reviews. So you have to be really selective, really deliberate with your dollars to make it go. And you have to spread them around, and you have to hit social media, coupons, again, a company like Rebate that can guarantee you your first 1, 10, 100 sales, whatever, and can also guarantee that they're staggered across time, which will also have a really positive impact and extrapolate that rank very quickly. So those things combined together, I think, make the most sense. But that's the short version of that's the long version of I don't use super URLs.
Nothing short with you.
That was short.
Yeah, I know.
So recently it's kind of come to the limelight that chatbots, obviously there's a very popular one that most people use, but that they might actually affect launching because of the buyer score, because of the type of people it attracts. Have you guys heard anything about this?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of speculation on that. And I would be surprised if Amazon is not keeping track of that, because it is something that would be easy to follow. So I think most shoppers, that use Amazon follow a natural level of activity. Most people are not buying 30 items per day on Amazon. Plus, Amazon also has referral data, so they know, at least to some extent, where people are coming from before they go to Amazon to make a purchase. So I would be very surprised if they are not following that. I haven't seen any evidence, any leak from Amazon that they're doing that, but it's not a far-fetched idea. So I guess good launch platforms, and there's other good ones, we're not the only one, but good launch platforms are always trying to bring in new shoppers, and they'll have fairly conservative limits on how many offers those shoppers can redeem, so that they're at least taking some steps to preserve that shopper score for them. And that doesn't mean that they can't go to other launch platforms and do certain things that would trigger, some indication to Amazon, but definitely keeping a fresh mix of shoppers is critical.
Do you have a way on your platform to kind of cap how much inventory people can buy from one buyer, is what I mean by that?
Yeah, we do. So we have caps on, how many redemptions that, each shopper can make. And again, that doesn't mean, to be transparent, that they can't go to another rebate platform and then a discount site and buy a ton of stuff on Amazon and trigger something. But I would say at the very worst, sellers are getting suspended for that. It may just mean that at least that shopper's purchase, who's a chronic deal hunter, may not be as effective as far as rank. So.
Okay. I wanted to circle back to the optimization, because we had discussed this also before the video. We were talking about titles and keywords, and using effective keywords when you're launching your product. So I would love for both of your opinions on that and how you would advise people to figure out which keywords they really want to go after when they are launching their product.
I'll jump in first if you don't mind, Brendan.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we talked a little about earlier in regard to running a PPC campaign on Amazon. The newer as of when this video is being filmed, the newer version of the advertising campaign really does give you some robust keyword suggestions. You know, you can type in blue widget and it'll give you widget competitors and other things that people call widgets, and teal, turquoise, you know, it's pretty good. The logic is pretty good. So that's typically where I start. I know Helium 10, you know, I don't work for them. I don't get any money for mentioning them, but Helium 10 has been kind of the gold standard of keyword discovery. But another way, kind of organically, go look at your competitors, right? You're not launching the cure for cancer. Someone else is selling something similar to what you have. Maybe not the same. You've made some differentiators and good for you, but someone selling something similar, and look at their listing. Make sure that they're performing well. They have good reviews. Look at their bad reviews. What are customers complaining about consistently, and make those revisions. You know, all those things probably make the most sense as far as adding in keywords. You know, if someone's selling a shoehorn and there's a weird seam on it and it hurts someone's foot, you can describe it as being a painless shoehorn, a seamless shoehorn for no pain, or specifically for people with diabetic foot pain. Whatever, you know, whatever spin or whatever group of keywords you can put in that'll capture that demand will result in sales.
I would even argue that even though obviously Amazon has the A10 algorithm and that's separate from any of the external, you know, search engines, you can even use, instead of just using Helium or Jungle Scout or any of those, you can even use things like SEMrush, even, you know, just programs, because like you said, you want to be discovered both outside and inside Amazon. So there's no harm in looking to see what people are looking up on Google, you know, or
For sure.
Spotify or any of those stores.
For sure.
Your thoughts, Brendan?
So I agree with everything Dan said, and I'll take kind of the launching and you know, veer off on one other thing that I guess ties into what I said before and partially what Dan said is using a launch strategy that mimics a natural shopper behavior and product development cycle on Amazon. So you want your product to start generating sales at a pace that's familiar to Amazon for a product that is generating traction in the marketplace. So for a long time, a lot of sellers were doing this like blast where they would launch and generate, you know, a huge number of sales for 7, 8, 9 days and would be ranked, you know, at the end of that week or 10-day period. What you want to do now is do a gradual ramp up. So, and this is also, I think, makes sellers more comfortable with their launch when they're starting with generating 1, 2, 3 sales a day and slowly scaling up, because they can see the progress. They see their product start to rank higher in Amazon, and you know, say you start on page 5 with 3 orders a day, and by the time you get to page 2, you're generating 10, 15 sales a day. That seems to be working better than this kind of blast of of orders in a short period of time. So.
Now, but circling back to the actual keywords with regards to what you're saying, would you suggest initially when you're starting your launch to just go after your main keyword, or would you suggest going after, like, say, 3 of your main keywords and dispersing your inventory among those 3?
Yeah, so what I've seen the best results from is when sellers do close variations on a similar phrase. So rather than generate all these sales, if you're doing search, find, buy, or even for that matter, I guess a super URL, using a close variation. So, paper towel holder, paper towel rack, paper towel holders. So doing like a plural, that seems to work best. So you're not laser targeting one keyword, but you're kind of keeping a close range on variations of a particular phrase.
Okay, so you wouldn't go from, you know, paper towel holder or towel, sorry, you said towel rack, but so you wouldn't go from towel rack to racks for bathrooms, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. So keep it, and maybe my example might have even been too broad, but definitely plurals, non-plural, and slight variations of spelling seem to work best. But you want to, and I don't want to dwell on pay-per-click, but you actually want to harvest those keyword phrases and find out what works best from a automatic placement campaign before doing that, and then you're kind of focusing in on what is working from that campaign. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, from my standpoint, I feel like we covered a lot of bases. Is there anything else you guys wanted to discuss specifically with rebate? Any topics you guys wanted to bring up?
The only other thing is from a functionality standpoint, you should either acquire your UPCs directly from GS1 or create your listings with a G10 exemption or have brand registry. Don't ever buy UPCs in a secondary market. I'm not going to name names, but GS1 is the only approved, and more importantly, the only place Amazon checks for brand validity. And they're getting tighter and tighter on this seemingly every month. So that's my last gem of wisdom.
Closing remarks by Dan Trumbull.
Yeah.
I'm glad Dan kind of shared a random idea like that, because I actually heard one yesterday, and I'm not going to share the exact product because it is a seller on rebate, but this particular seller sold a product that was hardware, and it required a subscription to use it. It was electronics hardware. So he was getting people to buy the hardware on Amazon, and then his recurring billing was off Amazon. And it just struck me as a genius thing to do, because he's just essentially getting the leads. This guy doesn't make anything on the hardware, uses Amazon to just get the hardware. What's that?
I said it's brilliant.
Yeah, and really after all these years, I was shocked that I never thought of that. And actually, when I was talking to him, I said, well, doesn't Amazon handle the subscription billing? He said, well, no, it's, they don't do that. This is just my company. When they get the product, they have instructions to sign up for the subscription program to use it. It can't be used without it. And I was just like, I don't know why I've been selling sporting goods. I should be selling his product. So, right. I just thought be a good thing to share. So
that's brilliant. Smart. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, both of you. I mean, Dan, you have to be here because you're
yeah, right.
You're tied to me whether you like it or not.
Right.
Brendan, it was awesome having you on. I hope that you're on a lot more. We love to see, not only just because you obviously have a successful and deep understanding of launching services, but also because you're a successful seller on Amazon, so your insight is very valuable. And I'm sure you could definitely teach us a lot of things that we may not know. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will be on next week. We have not decided on what the topic is, but yeah, we'll let you all know on our platforms, and I'm excited to have this series continue on.
See you next time.
Great.